In this video, we'll take a look at all of the fantastic new features within Color Efex Pro 4. First, we move into the updated filter list in the upper left-hand corner. We're currently on the All tab. This has all 55 of our individual filters listed out into alphabetical order. But the rest of the tabs here are these fantastic filter categories, which we break down the photography styles and types into different categories. Therefore, if you're working on a landscape image and you're not quite sure of the filter you might want to utilize, well, if you click on that landscape tab, this gives you the suggested filters for landscape photography. If you click on portrait, this gives you the suggested filters for portrait photography, and so on. What's really great about these filter categories is you can actually change these 6. You'll keep the all and the favorites, they'll always be there, but the other 6 you can choose from your heart's desire. In fact, if we go ahead down to the lower left-hand corner and click on the settings button, move into our filter list, here we can choose from our 6 categories and change maybe the landscape to fine art or commercial or architecture. In fact, if we click on architecture and we click the OK button, what you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner is the filter category landscape is going to change to architecture. So when I click on OK, it switches from landscape to architecture. Click on that tab, gives me the filters that are suggested for architectural photography. Now, moving into the updated section, as we click on this tab, this lists out all of the filters that exist within Color Efex Pro 3 but have since been updated and enhanced in Color Efex Pro 4. You have, of course, a whole collection of new filters, and we're going to actually take a look at one of these new filters, the Detail Extractor. Now, when I click on the filter in the filter list, our preview is enabled. Basically, we're going to be utilizing that Detail Extractor, and we can see what it's doing set to its default settings when you click on that. Now, if you follow me on the left-hand side for just a second, and we move over to the right-hand side of the filter list here and click on the little icon that's to the right of the filter label, this opens up into our visual presets. And each and every filter within the 55 has their own set of filter presets, or visual presets as we call them. What they do is they give you an idea or a different idea as to how you can apply this specific filter. If you look on the left-hand side, you've got your thumbnails there. Well, if I were to click on the thumbnail, let's say flat and detailed, first off, we're going to see what's going to happen to our image, the preview updates, and then also all of the tool sliders on the right-hand side of the interface have updated to fit to that visual preset. Now that's pretty handy stuff. Let's go back to the default settings, click back into our filter list, and then let's scroll down to the bottom lower left-hand corner into our recipes. And what a recipe is, because we have now the capability of stacking filters within the interface, a recipe, in essence, is a mix of different sets of filters. Because we can stack them together in different combinations, we want to be able to save them in these different combinations. Well, there's a bunch of recipes that are built into the software. You have the capability of saving your own recipes, and you can import recipes maybe after you've downloaded them from nixsoftware.com. With that, we'll click on the All tab here. This shows us all of the recipes that we now have in our Color Efex Pro 4. Let's click on one that I've created for this image and watch what happens. So you click on the thumbnail, our preview updates, and then you can see we've got 5 different filters laid out for us. Now, if we wanted to maybe start a little bit further back in the process, and I'll show you how to build this recipe up, we'll start with the one that's previous. I sort of created 2 of them here for our video. Now I click on Contrast, Detailed, and Vivid. It gives us Contrast Only, Detail Extractor, and Brilliance and Warmth. In essence, when you click on a recipe on the left-hand side, it replaces whatever you've got on the right-hand side. With that, we can favorite each one of these recipes as well by clicking on the little star that's to the left of the label. That just makes it so it shows up in your Favorites tab, as well as in the Photoshop version, if you favorite a filter or a recipe, it'll actually show up in the Nix Selective tool, so it's even more easily accessible. Moving down even further to the last tab that we've yet to get to in the lower left-hand corner, This is our history state browser. This records everything that we've done to our image while we're within Color Efex Pro 4. As we make changes, you'll see it's added, and basically as you go through, you can always move back if you needed to, and undo or compare from one state to the next. Now I'm going to leave the history state browser open for just a second because I want to move over to the right-hand side of the interface and show you a couple things. First, that every time we make a change, the history state browser is going to change as well. So if I were to go in and add a control point to maybe remove some of the detail extractor filter from the foreground in the image, to remove just a little bit of that extraction, what we're going to get is a slightly darker foreground here. But notice as we add in the control point, as we change the size of the control point, as we change the opacity, it's all updated in that history state browser. It's quite nice there, because now we can go back and say, well, you know what? I liked it when we just removed all of the effect from that control point. Well, you can do anything you might want to over there. And really, the sky's the limit now with Color Efex Pro 4, especially because we can stack these filters together, and it just enhances and speeds up and optimizes workflow. Now, into our filter stack we go. We currently have the detail extractor filter open, but if we wanted to make adjustments to contrast only or brilliance and warmth, we simply click on that filter label and it opens up into that specific filter so we can make adjustments. A couple other really cool things that you can do in here, of course, because we can stack, you can always turn on or off a particular filter with the checkbox that's to the left of the label within the filter stack. You can also move over to the right-hand side of the label, and you've got a few other filter controls. Here where we can copy control points and then maybe paste them into the next filter or a previous filter. We can reset filters but keep control points, and reset filters but delete control points. Really fantastic set of controls. You can, of course, remove a filter from the filter stack, so basically delete that filter by clicking on the X on the right-hand side of that filter. And then there's one more little option that I want to show you. Of course, you have control points built in, as we sort of utilized with the minus control point to remove some of the effect from the foreground. You've got your plus control point to put the effect in as well. But if you click on the word control points, here we can actually change the opacity of this particular filter. So if we decided that we really like this detail extractor effect, but it's just a little bit too strong, well, you can take that opacity slider and dial it back or dial it in, basically place it anywhere you want, and you can control the strength of that particular filter. A couple other updated things within Color Efex Pro 4 is with your control points you can now group and ungroup within Color Efex Pro 4, as well as delete and duplicate your control points. Now with that, our detail extractor looks pretty good. Let's run into brilliance and warmth, and I just want to increase the perceptual saturation another 5% or so, just to up the color here in the image. This is a fantastic new algorithm built into brilliance and warmth. What it does is it actually reacts to color the same way your eye would. So instead of just increasing the vibrancy of color like saturation does, perceptual saturation actually reacts to the colors around the objects that you're enhancing. It is sort of an all-encompassing kind of saturation slider, and it's working in a very different way than your regular saturation slider. Now, let's say we wanted to add another filter from here. Well, if we move over into the bottom portion of our filter stack and click on the Add Filter button, we can actually add more filters to the stack. As we do this, a couple things are going to happen. First off, as we click the Add Filter button, watch what happens on the left-hand side of the interface. You see how we went from the history browser to the filter list? Well, it does that so that you don't have to click a whole bunch of times to navigate through the software. We want to add a filter, the software knows that, so it brings us to the filter list. Really handy capability there. Just, again, speeding up workflow, making things easier. We actually want to add in our levels and curves. So we'll click on the levels and curves filter. And we can move in and, of course, adjust our shadows, our highlights, our midtones with our levels adjustment. All I really want to do is take our midtones and pull them down quite a bit. This is going to add a whole bunch of contrast to the upper portion of our curve. Now, we want to do this, but now the bottom portion of the photograph isn't so appealing. So what we're going to do is utilize control points to selectively apply this level and curve adjustment. Really fantastic control. Before we do that though, I want to show you something that's really cool about Color Efex Pro 4, and that is the shadow and highlight indicator system. To do this, I need to go in and blow out some highlights, and maybe even see about getting some shadows that are totally black. See if we can go in and do that actually. There we go. Now I've completely destroyed the image at this point. I'm going to show you how to get it back. But the reason I've done this is because I want to bring you down into the loop in the histogram and show you that we've, well, completely destroyed the image with the level and curve adjustment. And again, I did this on purpose, but it's to show you this indicator system. In fact, we could probably dial this back. And the indicator system down in the lower right-hand corner, these indicate to us when our shadows are totally blocked up. This is showing up in red, and anything that's completely blown out shows up in green. Now, I unfortunately had to go destroy the file with the levels and curves with this very aggressive enhancement, because had I not, we wouldn't be getting those highlights or shadows blown out. I had to do that on purpose. So with that, I just wanted to show you the indicator system. Let's return the levels and curves back. Then let's apply the level and curve just in the top portion of the image. So we'll drop our plus control point up there. And now we don't even have to make any kind of brush enhancement. We don't have to select anything out in the top of the image. All we have to do is place a control point. We can utilize the U-point technology built into the software, and it applies our levels and curves to the top portion of the photograph. To finish off this image, let's add in one more of the new filters. And actually for this, let's go into the All tab. And we're going to do that because if we scroll down to the bottom, we're going to add in a vignette. But I want to show you we actually have 3 different vignettes within Color Efex Pro 4. You have the vignette that's been pulled from Color Efex Pro 3 into Color Efex Pro 4. You've got a vignette blur, and then we've got this fantastic new lens vignette. And this is actually pulled over from Silver Efex Pro 2, Nik Software's black and white conversion software, of course. And yet the vignette here has been optimized for editing on color images. With that, we move into our amount slider. Let's dial this back a bit. We can change the shape and the size, how far into the middle we're encroaching, as well as the center and where it actually shows up in the image. I want to kind of break the vignette down at the bottom, so we're going to move the vignette down. But now our image has a lot more pop to it. We've got some personality, some style to the photograph. If we take a look at the before and after using the compare button in the upper left hand corner, here's the original image as we opened it up into Color Efex Pro 4. Here's our enhanced image. And to apply our effects to the photograph, we just click the OK button in the lower right hand corner of the interface. That brings us back into our host piece of software.